In Boston, the rain didn't fall, it lingered. It clung to windows, soaked sidewalks, and pressed against the city like a quiet weight no one talked about. Inside the Franklin Children's Rehabilitation Center, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and old books, a place where hope came slowly and left quietly. Emily Carter, 17, sat near the window in her wheelchair, watching raindrops race each other down the glass. She had learned to measure time not in hours, but in routines: morning therapy, afternoon exercises, evening waiting. Routine was safe. Routine didn't disappoint. Since the accident 6 years ago, Emily had developed a habit she never chose: making herself small. Not physically, emotionally. She smiled when expected, thanked people too much, and never asked for anything twice. People were kinder that way. Her legs lay still under a thin, faded blanket. Her hands, however, were always busy, straightening fabric, adjusting straps, fixing things that didn't need fixing. Control, even over small things, mattered. Across the room, other children whispered excitedly. A donor was coming. Emily already knew what that meant. A tall man with gentle eyes would arrive. He would ask questions, nod thoughtfully, and say words like inspiring and brave. He might even promise help. Then he would leave. They always did. Her mother, Sarah, had stepped out to clean the offices upstairs. Sarah never missed a shift. Emily had grown up watching her mother move through life the same way: head down, shoulders tight, heart stretched thin. Every day followed the same pattern: work, worry, smile, repeat. That was Sarah's habit. Survival. The door opened, and a ripple of movement spread through the room. Daniel Whitmore walked in quietly, almost hesitantly, as if unsure he belonged there. No flashy watch, no tailored suit, just a grey sweater and eyes that carried loss. He shook hands, listened politely, and crouched to speak with children at eye level. Cameras flashed briefly, then stopped. Emily didn't look up. She focused on pulling her blanket a little higher. Daniel noticed. "Who's that girl by the window?" he asked softly. The director glanced over. "Emily Carter, wheelchair since childhood. Exceptional grades. Her mother does everything alone." Daniel approached slowly, kneeling so his presence wouldn't feel heavy. "Hi," he said. "I'm Daniel." Emily met his eyes. She didn't smile. She didn't look away either. "I know," she said. "You're the billionaire." He chuckled lightly. "I guess that's one habit I can't shake." She tilted her head. "You're here to adopt someone." The honesty startled him. "I'm here to help," he corrected gently. Emily's fingers tightened around the edge of her blanket. She took a breath, one she had practiced holding back for years. "Then please," she said, her voice steady but fragile, "don't adopt me." The room went quiet. Daniel frowned, confused. Why not? Her eyes shimmered, but she stayed composed. "That was another habit, not breaking in public. Because I've learned how to live like this," she said softly. "We practiced pain. I can handle it." She swallowed. "But my mom, she's tired in a way no one sees. She works until her hands shake. She pretends she's fine because I'm watching." Emily looked straight at him now. "So if you really want to help," she whispered, "adopt my mom instead." Daniel felt something shift inside him, something his habits had kept locked away. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to say. And for the first time, Emily felt seen, not as a wheelchair, not as a charity case, but as a daughter protecting the person who had protected her all along. That night, Daniel Whitmore sat alone in his penthouse overlooking the Charles River. The city lights shimmered like answers he didn't yet understand. His phone buzzed with emails, board decisions, stock updates, charity requests, but he ignored them all. That was unusual. For years, Daniel's life had followed a strict habit. Work until numb, donate generously, never get close. After his wife died, routine had become his armor. If he stayed busy enough, grief couldn't catch him. If he gave money instead of time, he didn't have to feel responsible for anyone's heart, including his own. But Emily's voice kept returning. "I practiced pain. I can handle it." Daniel leaned back, rubbing his face. He had met children in worse conditions. He had written checks bigger than most people's lifetimes. Yet this girl hadn't asked for rescue. She had asked for justice. The next morning, Daniel broke another habit. He showed up early, before cameras, before staff, before excuses. Sarah Carter was scrubbing a hallway floor when she saw him standing there. Her first instinct was panic. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quickly. "I'll finish faster." Daniel shook his head. "Please don't, Tirish. I was hoping to talk." She froze, mop dripping onto the tiles. "Did Emily do something wrong?" Sarah asked, fear slipping into her voice. Daniel's chest tightened. Even now, he thought. She assumes fault. No, he said gently. She did something brave. They sat in the break room with paper cups of coffee. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she held hers. She talked at first like someone used to being careful, short answers, polite smiles. Then Daniel asked one simple question. When was the last time you rested? Sarah laughed. A quiet, broken sound. I don't remember. That was the moment the mask slipped. She spoke about waking up at subah ke 4 baje every day. About choosing between groceries and medication. About pretending strength because Emily believed in her. About never crying where her daughter could hear. Daniel didn't interrupt. He listened, fully, painfully, honestly. Over the next weeks, he didn't make grand announcements. He changed patterns. Sarah was offered training at Daniel's foundation, not charity, but a future. Her debts were quietly cleared. Her schedule changed from survival to sustainability. And Daniel did something else that shocked everyone. He came back, every Wednesday. No press, no photos. Emily noticed first. You're late, she teased one day. He smiled. Old habit. I'm breaking it. Emily's therapy improved, not because of miracle treatments, but because her fear slowly eased. Sarah laughed more, slept longer, learned how to say thank you without apology. Months later, Daniel invited them to dinner, not in a mansion, but at a small table overlooking the river. Emily looked at him seriously. You didn't adopt me, she said. Daniel nodded. You were right. She smiled, eyes bright. You adopted our life. Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years, peace. He finally understood the real lesson. Money can change circumstances, but habits change destinies. Emily hadn't asked him to save a child. She had taught him how to save a family. By choosing, every day, to show up differently.